yes, first of all, I'd like to really thank our sponsors. We've got Atlantic Imbizo for sponsoring this really awesome venue. And also we've got AccuFin Accounting. Guys, it's tax season. Please get your taxes in before the end of the month. Then also we've got Garen and William that are doing the cameras here, so thank you very much to you guys. And then we also hired some microphones in there, but it seems we don't need to use that as we've got a nice boom mic here. So that's F-Shop Music. Those guys really came to the party and helped a lot. Right guys, can we give a warm welcome, so you guys stand and give a massive clap to Nic Haralambous. There we go, please stand, there we go. That's it. Thank you, Nic, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure, good to see you.
Right. So the way that we start off Startup Grind, these are monthly events, and we always start getting to actually know the person that we're interviewing, right from the basics, the very beginning. Where do you come from? Where did you start out?
Sure, so I grew up in Johannesburg, went to school at a good old Catholic school for all my sins, and then decided that I wanted to be a war correspondent and went to study journalism at Rhodes. Can everybody hear me at the back? Yeah? Cool. And at Rhodes sort of cut my teeth in digital, started blogging in 2005-ish, when Blogger was just starting and Matt Mullenweg was starting WordPress. Also started my first startup there called Student Wire. It was a news aggregator for student newspapers, because back then students were disconnected. They still are. Students are a terrible market. Don't start a business for students. And then left Grahamstown after 3 years. Should have stayed there for 4 years, but Grahamstown's a very small place. And
Did you do lots of drinking there? And
yeah, I struggled pretty hard to finish my degree, if I'm honest. 50. I think there's some. If you've ever been to Grahamstown or a small university town, if you're doing 51% pass rate, you're doing well. 53%, you're working too hard. 49%, you're not working hard enough. I was in the 53%, so I was working too hard. But yeah, then went straight into the media thing. Worked as a freelance journalist. Struggled. It's a tough space to be in. Then got a job at Financial Mail, worked at Sunday Times on and off, 702 on and off, and then from Financial Mail went to Mail and Guardian, where I got into mobile and re-met my business partner at Motribe, Vincent, and then we both left and went to Vodacom, did social media stuff there for them, built The Grid, which was a Foursquare-like platform before Foursquare existed, and then left to raise funding and start Motribe. And you've explained the rest of that story. So yeah,
in a nutshell.
Yes.
And where did your parents come from?
My parents, they're South African, so I'm kind of a third generation Greek Cypriot. So yeah, my heritage is Greek Cypriot, but I'm South African through and through. I wouldn't consider myself Greek or Cypriot. I'm more South African than anything else.
Okay.
Yeah.
And growing up, what area of?
I'm a Santon boy. I'm a good, solid Santon boy. The concrete jungle. Yeah.
So, what did your parents do?
My dad was an entrepreneur, which I only realized once I was old enough to know what an entrepreneur was. It's one of my gripes. I wish my father had told me more about business when I was young.
So teach your kids from young.
Yeah, I swear it's something I'm going to do, because he was an entrepreneur and he managed to put me through private school and university and the whole bang shoot, and I just took it for granted that he's got money. That's everyone's parents have got money. That's what happens. Yeah. So he was an entrepreneur. Did they go
through many tough times?
Yeah, up and down. I don't think you can be an entrepreneur and not go through tough times. There are very few who, literally a handful who've never struggled. So yeah, of course, there were ups and downs.
And as a child, did this?
No idea. Kids are resilient little buggers. So I had no idea. But yeah, my parents were entrepreneurs, not classically studied or trained at all, and just did whatever came along. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So all of you guys decided to go to Grahamstown and study journalism.
Yeah.
At Grahamstown, why did you choose Grahamstown? Is it because of the journalism course, or
because it was very far away from my family? That was the reason.
Okay, so they were up in Joburg, you were down in Grahamstown, living the life as students should.
Yes, they would deposit money in my account once a month, and that was when I would speak to them. Hey, my money. That was it, yeah. No, and the journalism. you don't get better media than
No,
in Rhodes. And thankfully for that, the network that I earned at Rhodes was just invaluable. It's the reason I am where I am today. Every job I ever got, I've never had to give a CV. I've never had to show that I went to university. I just used to say, I went to Rhodes. Great, you're a hard worker, come work for us. That's how it went.
So Rhodes and hard work.
Yeah, really. No, you joke, but my editor at Financial Mail, Rhodes. My editor at Mail and Guardian, Rhodes. Sunday Times, Rhodes. 702, Rhodes. So the Rhodes network was...
It really does help a lot.
Yeah, I'm going to get a lot of slack for saying Rhodes so much. A lot of my friends think I talk about it too much. But it was valuable, and most of the very good digital tech people right now that you can think of have got some link into that network as well. Okay. Matthew Buckland, Vincent Meyer, there's Colin Daniels. There's a lot of people who've just started tech that came from Rhodes and picked it up from there.
Oh. Now, while you were at Rhodes, is that when you started Student Wire?
Yeah, that was when I started Student Wire. I was the deputy editor of the campus magazine and newspaper, which is pretty cool. It's got a decorated history. It was one of the most vocal anti-apartheid newspapers in its time.
Student Wire itself?
No, the newspaper, the Rhodes newspaper. Okay. So I was deputy editor of that, and then realized that students needed to connect with each other, and my lecturer one of the lecturers in the media space at the time at Rhodes was Vincent, who later became my business partner. So Vincent lectured the digital division of the Rhodes New Media Lab.
Okay.
And I approached him, and him and I built that, or he built it for me. I didn't do anything. And he handed it over to me. And
so he's the technical...
Yeah, he's the CTO, technical kind, yes.
Okay. And you did the business side? Or?
Yeah, I learned how to do the business side. I mean, you don't learn business at Rhodes unless you're doing a business degree. You don't learn business studying journalism, let me tell you. No, most journalists I know are broke.
That's how it works.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Sad story. Now, with the journalism, did you enjoy the course? Did you?
Yeah. I think studying was good. The lectures are interesting. I studied journalism, politics, and philosophy, so very broad spectrum of things. Wow. It's a good world view, and I think that's pretty important.
Apparently, there are different sectors of journalism.
Yeah, they're different streams. They're different streams. So you can specialize in TV or radio or print or digital or whatever. I mean, what the hell I was thinking, I specialized in photography. And we were just on the edge of digital photography, so my whole photography course was on actual film. So I spent endless hours in the friggin' darkroom managing film. So I now I know how to do that. I'm never going to use that again. Like the year I finished, we started using Photoshop. So that was a bit of a waste of a degree. You know, my parents hate that I say that, but yeah, that was 3 years of money down the drain. Yeah.
Okay, so obviously journalism. Oh wait. While you were at the Rhodes, you started something for the Digs.
Digspot. It was a social network for people in digs around the country to share recipes and issues and share accounts and that sort of stuff.
Yes, for the students didn't work.
For the students didn't work. Students friggin' suck. So that was an interesting one. That was my first real failure, and pretty dismal failure. So I raised 250,000 Rand for that.
Well, congratulations on that one.
Well, yeah, don't say that. 4 days later, I gave him money back.
Oh.
I thought to myself, what am I going to do with this money? I don't know what I'm going to do with this money. I'm going to give it back because I would have blown it. And fortunately, I had some people say to me, well, look, if you don't know what you're going to do with this money, don't spend it. And I didn't. And we looked at the market, we did some analysis, and Facebook was just starting to take off, and we thought, there's no way 250,000 Rand is going to sustain us, so let's just give it back before we blow it. Unfortunately, the investors were like, that's really impressive. Good for you. Take the money back, and no hard feelings, and I didn't make any enemies. Okay. So that was my very first lesson in, if you don't know what you're doing, pull out. And yeah, that's what we did.
Was your heart totally in it? Or
No. I mean, it's hard to have your heart in a first business because you don't really know what you're doing. A lot of the time, it's a phrase that I'm using a lot at the moment, and it was my TEDx Cape Town talk. A lot of the time, entrepreneurs spend their time at the forefront of incompetence. You're the first person who doesn't know what they're doing, and then you learn. And then you're the first person who doesn't know the next thing, and then you learn. So a lot of the time in your first businesses, you're figuring out how to be in a business and how to fail before you figure out that you love what you do. Okay. So, I mean, my track record in the last decade is 9 businesses started, 7 businesses failed, and 2 businesses sort of succeeded. So I'm a much better failure than I am a success.
But I think both of us could speak on the room on that one.
I think you have to be. You have to learn how to fail before you can really appreciate success. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so that was, you did your Digspot, you did your Student Wire, you decided, okay guys, I've finished my degree now, I'm going to go into the big world. You decided to approach your Financial Mail.
Yeah, I mean, no, I did freelancing after that. Yeah,
freelancing.
freelance writing, and that's just hell. It's so tough to be a freelance writer. I mean, a decade later, now I'm 29, and I've now got a column in Entrepreneur magazine and Men's Health. When I needed the money, I couldn't get a frigging column anywhere, because at 19, you don't have experience in the world. No one wants to hear from a 19-year-old. So it was tough. Freelance writing is tough. Some of the hardest people I know and the hardest working people I know are freelance writers and photographers. But it was
all hours,
horrible.
and they have to have all the stories.
Yeah.
Crazy hours.
Living for deadlines is terrible. And you don't set your deadlines. And the people I know who deal with deadlines the worst are journalists, ironically. So
the guys needed the most.
Yeah, completely. So yeah, that was tough. Freelancing is tough.
Yeah.
I don't envy anyone who's a freelance writer. It's tough.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So you went off. You decided to get freelancing. Didn't work out.
Yeah.
Did you decide, okay, I'm going to go back to my mom, I'm going to try this? Or
I was living with my mother this time. No, I'm living with my mother this time.
Okay, you decided, no, this is enough now.
Yeah,
I need a real job.
Yeah, I'm done. And yeah, it's true. I did need a real job. I'd been beaten hard enough by 3 failed businesses and a failed writing career, and decided it was time to use my degree traditionally and get a formal job in the media space, and started at Financial Mail as the editor of their campus magazine, FM Campus.
Oh, okay. Oh,
yeah, which is nice. It was a nice little job.
Well, that's something for the students as well. But
yeah, except it wasn't mine, and I didn't have to worry if they didn't buy it. And that's when, interestingly, South Africa is one of very few markets in the world where magazine and newspaper sales were going up at the time. So it was.
Internet wasn't working, so
yeah, precisely, and it wasn't taking off, and broadband wasn't a thing, so people still bought magazines. So it wasn't a horrible thing to work at a newspaper or a magazine at that time. And if you're going to work at one, BDFM is a good one to work at because they've got a good name in the industry. So they took me on, and I started to try and digitize a media company, which is tough. I mean, trying to sell blogs into the concept of a magazine is tough. Duncan McLeod, who runs Tech Central now, he was there at the time, and him and I tried really hard to get the senior management to understand that this internet thing is real and it's coming, and it didn't really work. I sat next to David Bullard's wife, and her and I also tried to convince people, and it's just a tough sell. So yeah, that also was pretty short-lived. I was there for a year and a half, maybe less. Yeah.
Okay. Did you sell it? Did it work? Did the campaign idea?
No, we started blogs, but if you don't have buy-in from the whole organization and digital isn't a thing in the organization, then it's not going to work.
It's obviously changed a lot since.
Yeah. I mean, since then, it was interesting. At that time, they had a lot of social media issues, so journalists were starting their own blogs and writing whatever they wanted and saying things publicly on behalf of the business, and then the business was getting sued. So then we started looking at social media policies, and that was about 6 years ago when social media policies became a thing, where businesses needed to know how their employees were managing social media, what they were saying on behalf of whom, who was responsible for who was saying what.
And there's a gap in the market there.
Yeah, and I mean, we needed to get hold of it. And in fact, one of the journalists was fired at the time that I was there for saying something publicly on a social media space that he wasn't meant to say, and then it was real. And then because of that dramatic thing, back then, IT departments managed social media, and those two things are very disparate. They're not the same thing. One is structure and infrastructure, and one is media. And we then had to take social media away from the IT department and make it its own thing. And yeah, then other...
It's a whole mindset
completely,
shift.
and you need a new division and new people to manage it. And then ex-colleagues of mine and from Rhodes, Gregor Rorick and Colin Daniels, they started doing media and social media at Avusa, who owned BDFM. And then they started to figure it out. Yeah.
Well, okay, so that didn't work out. FM, and then after FM, what made you change?
Mail and Guardian poached me from FM. So that was Matthew Buckland and Vincent, who would later become my business partner. Mail and Guardian is the oldest online newspaper in Africa. So they
approached it early.
Yeah, they've been at it. They've been at the front of that movement for a long time.
They're still out there.
Yeah, they're still pushing the boundaries. Now under new management with Chris Roper and Alistair Fairweather, they're doing amazing stuff. But Matthew Buckland took that newspaper to where it is now online, and he got me involved to do mobile. It didn't really.
For the next startup.
Yeah, you should. He's doing some amazing stuff. So is Vincent, for that matter. So.
Yes.
I went to head up their mobile division at Mail and Guardian, which didn't last too long because Matthew was then poached to go to Media 24 and moved to Cape Town. Vincent was poached to go to Vodacom, and he went to Vodacom, and I left and went to Zupi, actually, after 6 or 7 months at Mail and Guardian, yeah. I had a very short stint at Zupi, which taught me a fair amount of stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's really interesting. So, off you went to Zupi. After Zupi, what happened?
So after Zupi, I was talking to Vincent again, and you'll see a very common thread in my life up until now in my career with Vincent. It's been pretty important to have a mentor and someone who can guide you through your career and where you go and bounce stuff off of. And him and I were discussing whether I should stay at Zupi, whether it was a good idea. And I didn't feel like it was a good idea. I didn't feel like the company was a good fit for me. So I moved to Vodacom and helped Vincent there as a product manager for social media.
Okay,
that was my next move.
That's not the grid that you started up.
That was the grid, and we also built, and bear with me here, a massively multiplayer online mobile location-based game. So It was World of Warcraft for your mobile phone. And we built that from scratch. That was a 16-month project, and we built it inside of Vodacom. We had a really rad little division inside of Vodacom under Willie Ellis, who had some budget, and he would give it to us and say, "What can you come up with for R1 million?" And we'd go, "Well, geez, there's lots we can come up with. What do you want?" So we built a game, and that was really cool. So we built a game, got it to 5,000 or 10,000 paying users after a month. And then the typical corporate thing happened, and anyone in the audience who's worked at a corporate will know you get restructured a lot. Yes. And we were restructured at Vodacom, I think, 5 times in 12 months. So that means 5 different bosses, 5 different job titles, 5 different job outcomes. It was a mess. And then I started to realize that mobile was big enough that you don't need to be at a corporate to be in mobile, and in fact, you won't go very far in a corporate if you are looking at mobile. So we broke out, and Vincent and I decided to start hunting for some venture capital. And then in December, I think it was December 2009, I went on holiday, he went on holiday, and over Skype we both decided we should build something, and we built Motribe. He actually built the platform for his wife. So we wanted to see if we could give her something that she could use to generate revenue out of or build. And it was a social network for emo kids.
For emo kids?
Emo kids, yeah. It was called Emo Fwins with a W and a Z at the end. Emo Fwins. And you joke, but it worked. At that time, 2009, 10, 11, there was this massive emo movement.
Yes.
There were bands forming around it globally. And interestingly, in India and Indonesia, there was an emo movement, and it took off. So we launched the social network, and then we thought to ourselves, we should launch another one of these and see if it takes off. And as we were launching the second one, we figured, that's what it is. We want to build something that helps other people launch their own social networks on a mobile device.
Yeah.
So we started building that in our spare time, evenings, weekends, and eventually.
But you had the experience of the previous ventures at Vodacom and your
I suppose it's relevant. Yes, we had that experience. But again, I'm going to say that when you start your own thing, the experience flies out the window to some extent, and you just plow head first and hope for the best.
Okay. Did you go with the flow, or did you just say, did you have an idea of where you wanted to be, or did you just go with?
No, I was pretty dead set on what I wanted. We wanted to build a platform that we could then raise money for, move to Cape Town, start a business, and build our lives here in Cape Town and build a company in Cape Town.
And finding venture capital for that must have been
tough. Yeah, raising money in South Africa at that time was tough. It's still tough, but then there was maybe a handful of people you could approach. So we did. We flew down to Cape Town and we approached 4DI Capital and Justin Stanford, who incredibly had the vision to invest in us off a business plan. Which is a little bit of advice we can get into later, but you don't raise money on business plans anymore. You raise money on traction and revenue. So we were lucky that we got enough money to start our business, move to Cape Town, and kick things off with Motribe. Yeah.
Okay, now the Motribe starting out, you and Vincent, you both had an idea, you're busy working on this thing, it's busy getting the traction, or did you just plow at it? No,
we got traction really early on. Success is often not a good thing. So we launched the platform in 2010 on the 13th of September, and by the 21st of September we'd signed our first client for R1 million, which was great, wonderful. But then as an entrepreneur you think, shit, this is easy. Business is brilliant. The clients just come. If you build it, they'll come, and they did. And that was the worst thing that could have happened to our business, because you shift your focus away from your core business to your clients, away from what you wanted to do towards the money. And revenue is good and profit is good, but too soon, and it can cripple your vision. And that happened to us a little bit. We had a bit of a wobble in terms of our core product focus, and instead of building out what we wanted to build out, we started building out what the client requested. But yeah, we had traction. I think we hit 1 million users in 8 months for Motribe. Yeah, look, if
on a global scale? Or?
Yeah, on an African scale. Yeah, well, a fair amount of them were in India as well. India's a massive market. But the truth is, if you put enough marketing money and you're good enough at marketing, getting users is not hard. Retaining users is hard. That's the difficult part. Yeah.
That's where you have to really look at what you want to have achieved with it.
Yeah, completely. So retention is key.
Okay. And then taking off, especially going, what next? What was the next? What was the hurdle? What did you come across the first, besides the fact that you have to retain your clients, what was the next major thing?
Yeah, there's some very simple things that I think technology startups seem to think that we're different for some reason, but there's some very simple basic principles that as a journalist I was learning for the first time. You can't spend more money than you have. It's true, but you forget when you're raising funding and you've got millions of rand in the bank, you just burn money. And then you hire staff, and then you sign a client, so you hire more staff, and then you lose control of how many staff you have, and all of a sudden you wake up and you're a 12-month-old business with 12 employees. And that's not necessarily a good thing, when in fact you could have done it with 3 employees. You get caught up and you need to support clients and you need to grow, and all of a sudden it's this beast that you don't have control of, and then you're burning money instead of making money. So cash flow, it's something that every entrepreneur needs to understand. Technology is not the key thing anymore. Facebook's technology isn't what saves them. It's freaking cash flow. They need to have more money in the bank than they're spending, otherwise they don't have a business. And that's true for any business, whether you're selling flowers, socks, or technology. It's the same truth. Staff management. The more staff you get, the less focused you are as an employer on your product and more on your staff. Accounting. If you're not good at accounts, who does that? Do you hire an accountant? And if you do, there's 10 grand a month that you now need to budget for. So all these real business things then start to crop up when you become a business. So building technology is great, but you're not a business when you're building technology. You're a technology startup. You're a business when you have money coming in and money going out, and clients to deal with, and staff to manage, and HR policies to write. What the hell did I know about HR? Nothing. So then we had to get an HR consultant in to help us with HR, because that's a real problem in this country. So we learned after a couple of staff failures, the simple truth is hire slowly and fire quickly. So a company that does it really well in South Africa is Quirk. Quirk's hiring process is one of the longest I've ever heard of in my entire career. You have to go through 6 different levels of interviews to get into Quirk. But I do know for a fact that they've fired less than 10 people in the 12 years that they've been around. Because they know who they're hiring. Because it takes 6 different levels of interviews to get to be part of Quirk. So we learned that lesson the hard way by hiring the wrong people and then having to fire them. And if you've ever employed someone in South Africa, it is very difficult to fire someone in this country. And even if they're incompetent, it is very difficult. So that's when the HR consultant comes into play. Now you're spending money on something you hadn't planned for before. So there goes more money out of the bank account. So, businesses...
you want to wonder, do you actually want to do this?
No. My advice to most people I meet is don't start your own business. Because most people think, I'm going to start my own business and I'm going to have control of my life. That is wrong. If you want control of your life, go and get a 9-to-5 job, because you know when your salary is coming, you know what your work hours are, and you know what your clients are going to want from you. If you want to lose sleep, go bald, you start your own business. That's what you do.
But the rewards are so much better.
For some of the people, statistically, most businesses fail. Something like 85% of businesses fail within the first 12 months of being around. The rest of them fail in the next 12 to 24 months. So it's a very, very small percentage of people who actually do succeed at this. So most of the time I tell...
So if your heart's not in it, then...
Well, I mean, I don't know. Sometimes heart isn't really relevant. Sometimes it is. Sometimes you can stumble into a good idea or into a lot of money or have a great business partner. So it's a multitude of things. There's no one thing that you can tell someone, if you have this, it'll work. Because that's not true. It's just not true. In fact, most of the time it's, if you do this, you'll probably fail. Even if you don't do this, you'll probably fail. Because that's business. That's how it goes.
Making the decisions, I mean... What was your, how would I say, what did you decide? You got a decision to make, it's right in front of you, what do you do? How do you tackle decisions?
So I'm going to take that question into a more co-founder thing. So Vincent and I were 50-50 in that business. with our partners, obviously 40i.
But you have had a good relationship with Vincent. So
Yeah. So, but good relationship or not, a lot of people will say that conflict is good, but too much conflict will rip a business apart. So it's good that you have conflict with your co-founder, because you can't both be going the same direction all the time, because then who's going to challenge your direction? So Vincent and I had a really good relationship in that regard. We challenged each other all the time. Decisions were made ultimately as a cohesive unit, because we're 50-50, but at some points, you do have to have someone who says, actually, this is the way we're going. You do have to, for some of the decisions, do that. Yeah.
Now, Motribe's going really successfully, you're doing well, and MXIT came along. Tell us the story.
Well, it's actually not that simple. So I'm going to jump back before that even happened. So we got our first clients 2 weeks into launching, nice big clients. And they assured us that they would re-sign with us for another year, and they promised, and a day before we were supposed to sign, they cancelled the client. Contract gone, R1 million out the bank, finished. So now we've got staff. You've got staff and you've got expenses and you don't have money coming in, so what do you do? So that was like August, September for us in 2011. Okay. So you don't take a salary. I didn't take a salary, we cut as much expense as we could, we had to get rid of some staff. And you suffer, you struggle. So it's not as easy as we started Motribe, we got our client, we grew to 1 million users, then MXIT was interested, and then we sold. Every day, just up and down. Every day, from day to day. I don't think I slept a proper night's sleep in those 36 months. It's horrible. I don't know why I keep doing it. It's horrible. I'm starting to believe that every entrepreneur I know has something wrong with them. And you have to have a little bit of sadomasochistic feel about your life to go and keep doing this, because it is really rough. And when things go bad, it's on your head if you're the founder and the CEO of the company. And it was on my head.
And you've got staff underneath you that
completely
are relying on you.
And they are relying on you. And because you're the CEO, and at that time I was the CEO and I was the co-founder, and I'd made the decisions that got us into this situation, who's going to suffer? Me. So November, December, January, February, no salary. That means Christmas, no Christmas presents, no Christmas holiday. That's what being an entrepreneur is. That's what starting your own business is. That's the truth for most people, is that most of the time you don't have enough money to eat. That's just how it goes. That happened. And then you have to start thinking about different ways to make money and different things that you can do. And then you start doing client work, which we did, worked with ad agencies, which worked quite well. It was very fruitful, and we were starting to...
Get the word out there to get the advertising, to get the brand.
Yeah, we built product for advertising agencies for their clients. We used the Motribe platform to do that. And then our B2B business started to take on a really nice life of its own. So we were starting to pip into profitability. And Alan Craig Jr. approached us and put in an offer on the business, which we turned down. That was in 2011 at some point, prior to him buying MXIT. And then he bought MXIT, which was...
was he wanting to take MXIT as well as you, or was that just because you turned you guys down, you decided to go for that?
I'm not sure if it was either or because or not, but that's the chronological process of things. Okay. And then we kept a good relationship with Alan, started working on apps for MXIT, because their platform actually was really ripe to be built onto. Okay. And at that time they had 9 or 10 million active users a month. Yes. So we saw a gap, and we had dev capacity, and we had know-how, and we started doing really quick iterative apps. The first one was MixPix, which was Instagram for MXIT, and the growth was just phenomenal. We saw 1 million users.
And MixPix was built on your Motribe?
No, it was built using our Motribe devs, but onto the MXIT platform.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I see.
So, and I mean, the growth was just huge. Yes. So we saw, I think, 1 million users in 60 days or something. Wow. And then we built another app, which was a rate and date kind of app, which got 1 million users in 40 days. And then MXIT started to see that we actually knew what we were doing, and that we could help them build out their inventory and generate some revenue for them. And then we started getting into talks with Alan and building more and more and integrating more and more, and the acquisition just sort of showed itself. Yeah. Okay.
Now, Motribe's exited out to MXIT.
Yeah.
You're sitting back, you've got a nice big bank balance.
Yeah, I wish. No, so it's not that easy. We'll jump back to that exit. Selling businesses is not easy and it's not fun. Even if it is a R1 billion deal and you're the Instagram founder, there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of stress. For overly ambitious people like myself, it's never good enough. even if it is $1 billion, which, trust me, this wasn't, it's never good enough. You always want to be more. You don't start a business in the tech space to sell out in 2.5 years. You start a business in the tech space to have a company with 1,000 people in it and really change the world. So there's always a part of you that feels like you shouldn't sell, and there was a big part of me that felt like, oh, it's so early. We're 2.5 years old, and 2.5 years in the big scheme of a company is nothing. It's a drop in the ocean. If you look at Apple being around since the 70s or 80s, it's, 2.5 years is nothing. So it was tough. It was a mental battle for me, but at the end of the day, what founders need to realize is when you've taken investment, you're not playing with your money anymore. You're not playing with your future alone. So when you are the CEO of a business that's taken funding, you actually have legal and fiduciary responsibilities to your investors and co-founders and staff to do the right thing. And the deal that we were offered was profitable for everyone involved, so the right thing was to exit. But it's still tough. You still negotiate hard. You still negotiate contracts.
You've worked hard 2.5 years on this business.
Yeah, I mean, now looking back, it feels like 2.5 years was nothing. But, the tough parts are the negotiations. The lawyers get involved, and negotiating a sale is tough. And the restrictions, the confidentiality, a lot of nuances that you don't realize go into selling and buying a business until you're in it and you're figuring it out. So, you hire lawyers, that's an expense. Who pays for that? How long does it take? What do you do at work while this deal is going through? Do you tell your staff? Don't you tell your staff? It's a very complicated thing, which is more stressful than running a business. But yeah, ultimately...
So it's more stressful than the actual running.
It was stressful, it really was. And ultimately, though, we got a good deal, and my team stayed on for a period, and Vincent's still there, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Exit out, and then, what next journey? Or did you decide to, I'm going to take a break now from this really stressful stuff? Or what was going through your mind?
Yeah, it's funny, I've learned that I'm very bad at celebrating success. So when we signed the deal, I went home, threw the contract on the floor, watched TV, and got takeaways. That was it. That was our celebration. It was terrible, and it was a mistake. It was a big mistake. So now I celebrate every little success that I can, because you deserve it. If you work hard and you do something good, you should tell yourself that you've done something good. You shouldn't constantly berate yourself to do better. So I've learned that lesson. But yeah, ultimately for the first month or two afterwards, it's a bit depressing. Because what do? I sat in my underwear and watched TV for a month. Because, shit, I don't know what to do with my time. This is depressing. I don't have staff. I don't have an office. I don't have anything.
You've been running around so much, now suddenly just stopped.
Now I'm like, oh, crap, what am I? So I walked my dog a lot, went for runs. And then I realized that I needed to remind myself that business should be fun. And for me, I have a passion for socks. So I did decide at that time to take 6 months off. I blocked some of my money and said to myself, I'm not going to work for 6 months and just see what comes my way. I went snowboarding with some friends, which was a good way to show myself that, you've done okay. And then I came back, and a lot of people said to me once I was back from snowboarding, in fact, before I went snowboarding, said, it's so easy for you to have done that because you raised funding. And it's easy when you raise funding. And I wish I could just slap them and say, I wish you knew the truth. But the truth is, when you raise funding, it's the beginning of your debt. It's not the start of success. And the thing that I think I want to impart on a lot of entrepreneurs starting in the tech space now is stop reading TechCrunch. Stop reading Read Write Web. Stop reading any of those blogs that tell you that raising funding is successful. It's not. Raising $40 million means nothing unless you're profitable. Profitable businesses are successful businesses. And when you raise $40 million, you're in debt $40 million. It's that simple. And obviously it isn't that simple, but the truth is you need to build a profitable business, not raise money. There's a very big difference.
So you're more for bootstrapping?
I'm not. No, not at all. I think that context is key.
Okay.
So there are businesses that can't exist without funding. Okay. It's just true. Facebook wouldn't be where it is now without funding. Sure. It's just that way. But the truth is, if you are a small business, you'll find it's easier to raise money if you're profitable than if you're not. Profitable businesses every time will raise more money. Every time. Which, I've had experience with. When we were at Motribe, in 2010, 2011, we tried to raise more funding. And geez, that's tough, eh? I went on the funding raise. I went to New York, went to London, I met with guys from Germany, we went to Texas, up into Africa. I think I pitched to 40 or 50 different VCs in the space of 6 or 12 months, and every single one said no.
And you guys were doing well?
Sometimes you think our VCs don't know anything. They know. They can tell when your business is too young or too old or too small or too big. They know. And every single VC I pitched to said no. And I mean, think about that. Knock on 50 doors and 50 of them say no. You start to think, maybe this business isn't good. What are we doing?
Self-doubt.
Yeah, completely. And that's another thing, a rite of passage. You have to go through that self-doubt to push through it and say, actually, I don't care what they say. I'm going to do it anyways. So no, I'm not necessarily for VC. I think context is very important. Yeah.
Okay. How did you get involved? Socks.
Okay.
Tell us. We've got my socks on here. There
good,
it is.
good, nice. I like to see it. So people told me that it was easy for me because I raised funding, and I wanted to disprove that myth. People also say in South Africa, it's so hard to start a business in this country. The government makes it so difficult. It's hard to start a business and register with the CIPC and to get a bank account, and it's so expensive. That's all true, but it's not something that should stop you. So I set out to prove some very distinctive things. I wanted to prove that you didn't need to be a millionaire to start a business. I wanted to prove that you could do it in less than 2 months. And I wanted to prove that profitable businesses exist. So I was thinking of what I wanted to do that was fun and funky, and I've been wearing Happy Socks, the brand Happy Socks, for about 3 years. But there's some problems with Happy Socks. The product is imported, which I don't really agree with. I'm very pro South Africa, and our textile industry is under the gun at the moment. So I wanted to stop buying imported products. I wanted to use sustainable stuff. I wanted a pair of socks that wasn't, at that time, Happy Socks were 200 Rand or so. So I decided, let's find out if I can do it cheaper. Bearing in mind I'm a journalist who's a tech entrepreneur who has no clue about fabrics, textiles, manufacturing, making, selling. For that matter, I've never even had an e-commerce business. So it was all brand new for me. But again, with the forefront of incompetence concepts, I wanted to see if I could do it. So the goal was to start the business with 5,000 Rand or less, in 6 weeks or less, and become profitable within the first month. And that all happened. So there's some really interesting stuff that you'll learn if you try something new. So by trying to figure out where you get local product from, we discovered that Durban has got bamboo. And bamboo is sustainably grown, and it's better for your feet because it's antibacterial and it draws out the sweat better than cotton, and it lasts longer.
Comfy.
And it's super soft. It's just like silk.
Yeah.
So we learned that, and I was like, okay, great. Bamboo's the choice. Where do we get bamboo from? You make a phone call and you find that it's in Durban, and then completely. And then you ask them where they ship it to, and you find a sock manufacturer. And fortunately, I was really lucky to find a sock manufacturer who was willing to help me understand everything from thread count to needle count to designs and all these things.
So they mentored you through the...
They kind of mentored me, but the truth is they wanted business. So they help people who are willing to start. Okay. So I then discovered a really interesting thing about the fashion space. People make samples for free. Mind-bending stuff, really simple, but if you ask, they'll make you a sample. So I gave them 4 designs, and I was like, can you make these? And they said, yes. I said, cool, how much will that be? And they said, no, we'll give you a sample, test them out. Great. So I got 4 pairs of socks, got the sample, put them on, they were really comfortable. The prices worked out for me. Again, very simple business tactics here. If it costs you X, put a markup of Y, sell it at Z, and then you have a profitable business. So that's what I aim for, simplicity in its absolute entirety. But the cool thing is now I haven't spent any money because I used WordPress to set up the website, WooCommerce to do the shopping cart, Obox theme, which was like $49 or something. So I've spent a total of $49 and $4 a month on hosting. And the socks I got were free because they were samples. So I got a photographer to take photos of the socks, put them on the website, and I sold 800 pairs in 10 days through CityMob.
Wow.
Done. And I didn't spend any money. So now we've got 800 people committed to buying socks from me. Now I know I've got money coming in. So I went and printed the socks then, and we had the socks made. So there you go. First profitable business within a month.
But did you have experience in setting up a WordPress website, for example?
Yeah, I've been setting up WordPress for 5 or 6 years.
The blogger right in the beginning.
Yeah, all the way at the beginning, just screwing around. But again, you don't need to have that experience. If you go to bluehost.com as the host, there's a one-click WordPress install. You literally go WordPress, and it installs WordPress on a server for you. You direct your URL, done. Now you've got a WordPress site. Shopping carts are easy and free. There's no need to reinvent the wheel, and it's a very key thing that entrepreneurs seem to think, that you need to rebuild software and technology. You don't anymore. There are enough really smart people building technology for you to use. The changes aren't happening for us. For me, I'm not a technical guy. The changes aren't happening in tech anymore. The changes are happening in business model. So fashion
is changing.
Yeah, the business models are changing. There are a lot of people who are manipulating and changing business models. So fashion, for example, I do socks as a service. I promise you, I met with people who make socks in this country and they laughed me out of my meeting. They were like, why would anyone buy socks online? Why would anyone subscribe to get a new pair of socks every month? They said to me outright, your business will never work. And that's when I knew I had a good business. Because the incumbents didn't understand that they were about to be taken over by digital. Yeah. So it's not the making of the socks or the technology.
Trade with the newspapers, didn't know they were taken over digital.
Same thing. There's nothing new happening in the media space. The technology isn't groundbreaking. It's the way that people are thinking about using the technology that's changing. So the business models are changing, and that's where the innovation is coming. Obviously there's more innovation on the tech space, but for me, as someone who's not a coder, you don't need to be a coder anymore. There's enough technology to click, 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 launch. Yeah.
In fact, we're getting one of the speakers of one of the e-commerce next month, so it's been quite interesting.
Cool.
And socks, you got the guys going. You sold those 800 socks. I don't know, did you run again with City Mob or?
Yeah, we have run a few with City Mob. It's an ongoing thing.
Okay.
They are great. They're doing some cool stuff. They're growing at a rapid rate. Really, really smart business. So we did partner with them for a few more. I've got some artists who are doing socks for me. I'm just really experimenting with it and having fun with it because business should be fun.
What is your business model for the socks?
The business model is really simple. It's socks as a service, so there's a 6-month or a 12-month sock subscription that you can buy, the Big Nic or the Little Nicky. You can also buy once-off socks.
So you can buy once-off?
Yeah, you can buy once-off. Most people that come on buy 3 pairs. That's just the average that it works out to be. And we ship
one for you, one for somebody else, and one to get lost.
Yeah, pretty much. We ship to about 10 countries worldwide at the moment. And yeah, we've got sales coming through every day.
Shipping, how did you set that up worldwide? I mean, in South Africa you go, I'll never be able to send to America or Afghanistan or whatever. So how do you...
Again, because I was completely ignorant about this, I didn't understand what the problems were, so I didn't really think there were problems. So I just used the post office. And I've yet to lose a package.
Really?
As soon as our post office is really good at getting packages from where they are to our borders. And once they're at our borders, International Post takes it. Once International Post's got it, you're golden. Because their post systems work. With the exception of the UK over Christmas, they were on strike, so a lot of our deliveries didn't actually get sent. But I mean, to illustrate how good the postal service can be, I've delivered socks quicker from here to San Francisco than from here to Johannesburg before. It took 4 days to get socks to San Francisco, and one of my items got lost here in the local post, and it took them 2 weeks to recover. So you can do international stuff. It's about context, and it's something that building a sock business without any knowledge of it has taught me. You just have to reframe the way you think about things and not make them problems. Because if you think that, the previous problems existed, sure, they did exist, but you weren't part of that problem. So find a different solution. I didn't want to stock my socks in retail, because if you do that, you have to have a wholesale price. And if you have a wholesale price, your margins go down. So I was like, screw retail. And people were like, no, what do you mean? You have to stock your socks in shops.
Sure, yeah. You feel it and then you touch and then
I said, why? Why do you have to stock in shops? Because of traffic. I was like, yeah, we get traffic to my website every month.
But you've got you're on WordPress, you're blogging, you've got that innate kind of traffic already.
Yeah.
I start out, I've got no traffic, I'm not a blogger. First time I'm launching my own website. Is it the same?
Yeah, it's tough. It's the number one question that I get asked, and it's the number one problem that anyone starting a website anywhere in the world will have is traffic. Getting traffic onto your site is the most difficult thing you're going to come across. I mean, now that I've got traffic, I have other complications like PayPal not working or payments being an issue or deliveries. But
nice problems to have.
Completely. But the biggest issue, even for me right now, is traffic. And the way that you can do that, and sure, I do have a presence online that helped me launch this, but you can do it without having that presence. You just have to be smart about it. And again, reframe your problem. Don't think, I need traffic. Think, what story am I telling? And is that story good enough for people to want to write about? And for me, it was. And I framed the story in a really simple way for media to understand. 6 weeks, 5,000 Rand, profitable in a month. That's a story everyone wants to tell. Then, local bamboo. What is bamboo? Oh, bamboo is comfortable. Great. So now it's local, helping textile, shipping globally, 5,000 Rand, 6 weeks. There's a story to tell. So it's not about traffic, it's about a story that people want to tell. And then when people want to tell the story, they start talking about it. And when people start talking about your product, you're winning.
It starts going word of mouth.
So I did have an advantage because I did have the Rhodes network that I tapped into, and I've been in GQ, Men's Health, FHM, rah, rah, rah. But you can do that too. It's not exclusively for people who have an online presence. It's for people who are thinking out of the box and reframing their problems. Just reframe the way you think about your problems, and there are solutions out there.
Okay. Tell us a bit about ForeFrontAfrica.
Cool. So Motribe is obviously a mobile thing, and Nic Socks is completely not. It's an e-commerce desktop play for the top 10 or 15% of the world. It's not targeting the bottom end. But I couldn't ignore mobile. You can't. If you're on this continent, you can't ignore it. And my expertise is in mobile. So I decided that I needed to get back into it. And there is a big gap in the market right now for people trying to understand Africa. And just in that one phrase is the problem with the way that people phrase it. People are trying to understand a continent when there are 50 plus countries to understand.
Yeah.
So what I do with my business partner, Tracy, we are a strategy firm. We're a mobile strategy firm, and we help big businesses understand mobile as a technology inside of their business, as well as for their customers, and how to build into Africa.
So how to integrate mobility in your business, but also engaging with your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. Whatever they need as a business. And then the key thing for us is the Africa expansion. We help businesses expand into Africa.
Okay.
Yeah, and
it sounds quite exciting, actually.
It is. It's an interesting thing.
How's it been going?
It's good. People pay me to travel to the most interesting countries in the continent, which is fantastic. I mean, I've been to technology hubs in Ghana, Nairobi, and in Lagos at the moment. I still need to be this year in Libya and Egypt and all cool places. So I've seen technology entrepreneurs from 3 of the biggest tech hubs in the continent. And it's interesting to note that we're all going through the same problems. We all have the same issues. We're not unique. There are very, and I've said this in our conversation already, very simple standard business practices that you need to get to grips with. And everyone struggles with them. Cash in, cash out, expenses, how do you stay afloat? All those things are at the CC Hub in Lagos, at MEST in Ghana, and at the iHub in Nairobi. Everyone's got those issues.
Do they see it? Do they see the problems different to what other hubs around them do it, or how do they?
We all see the problems as unique, and that's the problem, is that we all think, oh, no one's going through this. And what we actually need to do, and our ecosystem in South Africa is very much problematic with this. We don't talk. We don't talk. We're protective. As a culture, South Africans are humble and quiet. We don't talk about money. We don't talk about how much we earn. We don't talk about whether we're struggling or not. And I made a conscious decision when we were going through that rough patch at Motribe that when some of my colleagues and mentors and friends asked me, how are you? I would tell them. And they said, well, how's business? And I'd say, it's really bad. And you know the weirdest thing? They wouldn't laugh. They wouldn't mock. They'd go, shit, me too. I'm having such a hard time. How are you dealing with it? What are you doing with salaries? Are you firing staff? And if you are, which HR guy are you using? We all want to feel like we're not alone in this because it's rough. Like, it's hard. Building businesses it's a hard thing to do. And we isolate it as it is. And as a culture, we don't talk about our failure and our shortcomings and our difficulties. I promise you go to New York and you pitch at a startup thing there, and you go to San Francisco and they will tell you, I've got this much money in the bank, I've made this much money, I earn this much money, my clients are worth this much, and I'm doing better than you are. Because they're open about it, and that culture helps people come to grips with what the standards are and who's struggling and who isn't. But here, we're all protective over what we've got, and that's not how you grow. For an ecosystem to grow, you have to share everything. Because if I do well, you do well. And we're the founding culture of Ubuntu, but we don't use it. In the tech space, we just don't use it. So my theory is, if I exit my company really nicely, it raises the profile of the whole ecosystem, and then investors want to come and bring their money here too. And see
actually, it'll assist everybody.
Precisely. Awesome. So yeah, it's traveling has been really amazing. Traveling into the continent has been phenomenal. I get to work with some of the biggest companies in the world. So it's been good.
That's exciting. And does that influence much with your sock business, or is it something pretty much almost automated? Yeah,
we're getting to a point where it should be automated, but I mean, I do spend my evenings working on the socks. But yeah, traveling into Africa. Yeah, it's a nice, fun distraction. But Nigeria was definitely a market that piqued my interest when it came to fashion. There are some crazy things going on in Nigeria. The money in that country is just amazing. Interestingly, they've got a $100 million champagne industry. in Lagos.
Wow.
It's crazy. There's money. There's money in these countries, and we think that it's all what Americans tell us the countries are like, but it's not like that all across the board. So yeah, I'm now exporting socks to Nigeria, and they're distributing them for me in the country.
Excellent.
So yeah, next is Kenya. So yeah, it's cool. Yeah.
So they're actually the two businesses almost working off each other. in a sense.
I keep them very separate, but yeah, when I am in Nigeria, I meet with various people who do various things. It's an African way of doing business, you know, who's doing what, and you figure out who's doing what. Yeah.
The idea behind Startup Grind is that if you guys leave here and you haven't met at least one person new, then you've actually failed. Because you could have stayed at home and watched it on YouTube. So please picture somebody, get out of your comfort zones, talk to somebody, connect with the people, and let's try and get foster the Silicon Cape initiative here in Cape Town. Thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, Nic